the medicine woman.
Hi guys, it's Astra Lovely Day, your medicine woman back here with another video. This video is basically gonna be like a prequel to the previous video, which I'll put here in the cards which you should watch. It's different ways you can basically do shadow work. So it's gonna entail different ways you can do shadow work and the different ways you can kind of approach it to kind of make it easier. The kind of things are things a lot of this stuff I've come up with my own and different ways I've done shadow work. I initially made this for a friend of mine, so I will send her the link before it even comes out so she can watch it and see how we can help her. But these are different ways you can do shadow work. Before I talk about the different ways you can do shadow work, we have to ask ourselves, what is shadow work? So this is what the dictionary definition means or what I googled online. Shadow work is a type of psychotherapy that focuses on the parts of the psyche that people often keep hidden, such as trauma and resentment. Some people may refer to this as the shadow self. So the first step I would say to make doing shadow work is to journal. There are many different ways to journal, and this kind of chapter I say of the video, the timestamps to kind of help you go through along the video, are the different ways you kind of journal during shadow work. So I'm gonna link my poetry account and put it here so you can watch. So poetry was a huge part of doing shadow work for me because as this chapter will start, because symbolism is a huge part of understanding the self, understanding the shadow, and understanding the subconscious. So, using symbolism, especially from your practices, whether it's your religion, whether it's your spirituality, symbolism is a huge part of how human beings throughout millennia have tried to understand ourselves. Whether it's religion, whether it's spirituality, it is a part of that. And you can use the symbols inside of spirituality and religion to kind of help you. If you're a Christian, for example, the lamb is a symbol. The throughout many religions, I don't know what it is. I think a gifted child, which is Jesus, for example, someone who's like very gifted child who has a lot of knowledge, wise old man, it's like Elijah. So different parts, the different symbols. They could be people, it could be animals. It's just different symbols, and usually they come apart in dreams. So it could be a huge part of even getting to your dreams. But I would say it's simply a cheat code and a puzzle to understanding your subconscious, especially your dreams, like I mentioned before. Symbolism can also symbolize the things that you've gone through. So for me, using my personal experience, growing up, I always felt like a caged bird. I grew up from a religious family, and a bird is a huge part. I always have dreams where I'm flying, birds, wings, because I knew, and for me, like, I feel like shadow work not only helps you with dealing with your own, like, shadow and your subconscious, it helps you kind of get into that individuation process and know your destiny. I know that whatever I'm doing has to make me feel liberated and make me feel like I'm flying, make me feel like I'm not, like, held, like, or tethered to the ground. Pardon me. So, the bird is a huge part of mine. For you, it could be a deer, it could be a serpent. Um, these group of people I follow, Sarah Mystica, one day I hope that they come across my videos. And they have a book of symbols that they mention in their videos very often. I'm gonna link it in the bio and kind of discover it from one of their videos. I just would recommend you watch them and listen to their podcast as well. Symbolism is a huge part of their work. And Mariana Lewis is an archetypal tarotist, and Christina Ferrello, if I pronounced it correctly, is a astrologer. They're some of my favorite people in this world. So go watch them. Also, books I would recommend when getting into symbolism: The Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell, and then just reading about the collective unconscious by Carl Jung, because Carl Jung has a lot of books, and different people are Jungians like myself written so many books about him and have different interpretations of Carl Jung's work. So it would be hard for me to mention a book, but just type into YouTube, type into Google The Collective Unconscious by Carl Jung, and that's what you gotta do. The collective unconscious in Jungian psychology is the part of the unconscious mind which is derived from ancestral memory and is common to all humankind and distinct from the individual's consciousness. So it's basically everything I've been saying. The collective unconscious is, look at how in different cultures, the creation story, for example, is one that is very similar among different cultures. The theories of afterlife, mermaids, these are parts of the selective unconscious that the collective unconscious, I mean, that have, permeated in our subconscious, and we all share it as human beings. So it's very nuanced, and I suggest you read into it. So poetry isn't your thing. Recommend you do dream work. I think a lot of the time we think our dreams don't make any sense, but they are telling us something that we should kind of address most of the time. And Healing will take precedence if you kind of record your dreams, especially if you're feeling really bothered. Record them, voice notes, journal them, because if you do dream work, I think dream work was the perfect kind of it's the perfect kind of approach to kind of understanding your subconscious mind. When I was going through my dark night of the soul, so I don't have exactly a dictionary definition, but I will say the dark night of the soul is basically one of the hardest processes of your life, where you kind of go through an evolution. You go through you go through the process of kind of like it's a butterfly, it's a caterpillar, it's a butterfly process, going through the process of individuation, where you go through the worst experience in your life and you come out of it with so much knowledge. You come out of it knowing yourself. You come out of it basically being at one with your shadow and your subconscious. So that is the dark night of the soul. So when I was going through that process, I was taking note of my dreams, and water is very symbolic of the subconscious in different practices and different religions. And I found personally that when I would have these dreams, the water was black, like dark, and I'd be swimming in it, and then I'd be saving people. And I never understood. It was very superhero-ish, and I was like, "What about me? Could do that." And it's one of the reasons I feel like I started this channel so I could kind of what's it called help people, or just offer my service to people, or offer healing to people in the ways that I know best. So your dreams could be telling you something huge. I remember I had an ex. He was much older than me. Like I'm 20. I met him when I was 18, and I'm 22. He was 32 at the time, so he should be like in his late 30s. I was in love with him. Like he was the biggest, I feel like he's one of the biggest parts of my life at the time. He meant so much to me. And in the dream, I kept on having a dream that me and him would get married. And I remember just wanting to leave and it being horrible. And I was like, I think my dream was kind of telling me like, you need to dump this man in the basket. By basket, I mean like dustbin. So dreams will tell you things about yourself that you need to address. So, taking note of your dreams, I think, is a huge part of doing shadow work. I do have a definition. The dark night of the soul is a spiritual stage of transition and purification that can involve confusion, loss, and inner turmoil. It's a time when people get out of their old ways of being and embrace a deeper truth about themselves. So, with dreams as well, I forgot to add this. If you're in a specific situation and something is occurring, like a majority of the time in your dreams. For me, I grew up being bullied and being ostracized. So I always have dreams where I'm being bullied or ostracized. Or there's some sort of social politics that has to do with who's popular, who isn't. And for me, it's helped me kind of decolonize my own relationship with being a part of a group, being a part of a community because I was ostracized. So things like that keep on occurring in your dreams like are a huge part of the shadow work. It may seem as though that taking note of your dreams is not as effective as the traditional way of doing shadow work, which I believe is doing using prompts to kind of address your subconscious and the things that have bothered you throughout your life. But your dreams are usually telling you what it is you need to address, what it is that is important, and what it is that you need to kind of like get into the process of healing. So I'm gonna go through the traditional way of doing shadow work because this video has the different ways of doing shadow work already. So the most simple way I've seen to do shadow work is basically to use a journal, and then you use prompts. So these are some prompts I would advise you use and that I got from the internet. So what this is the first prompt. Give me a second. Uh-huh. First prompt. What qualities in others trigger you the most? And why have you acted out of fear or insecurity instead of authenticity? Question mark, sorry. What emotions do I suppress or avoid? What's a childhood memory that still affects me to this day? When have I been manipulative, jealous, or deceitful, or how did it serve me? These are prompts that will definitely make the process much easier. And if you start asking yourself these questions, and you can answer it like helpfully, the reason why I did put the prompts first is because symbolism and dream work for me is just a better way to tackle it. But if you're someone who's more direct and is very confused when you have dreams or you do kind of very poetic or very spiritual, I'd say, um shadow work, I think prompts are just on the nail. You'll get it. So these are practical. So in this chapter with video, these are practical ways to work these are practical ways to kind of analyze your subconscious. So think of your patterns by patterns, I mean your patterns of behavior and your reactions. And when you have a negative thought about yourself, what is occurring? So you kind of stop it within the moment. So let's say, for example, for me, I have a learning disability, and I've always felt incapable. I've always felt like I couldn't do things. So one thing I try to stop myself is when I call myself stupid or dumb, I just stop it in the moment. Like, no, I'm not. I just learn differently. So I've kind of reframed my brain to kind of support the fact that difference doesn't necessarily mean I'm bad. It doesn't mean I'm stupid, it doesn't mean I'm dumb. I'm actually quite intelligent. Like I have 2 degrees. But till this day I feel like I'm stupid because I can't function the way other people function. But I it doesn't make it, and this is for neurodivergent people as well, and it doesn't make it like a defect. It simply means that I'm different. And even though scientifically it may be a defect, I don't think seeing it that way is good for you. But if that's how you choose to see it, that's okay. But then kind of decolonize what a defect means. Maybe a defect is not um as bad as people make it out to be. Maybe it's not the worst thing in the world. I think kind of like decolonizing why you dislike certain things. So if you're black, for example, why is it that you don't like certain types of hair or curls of hair, like 4C hair? Why don't you like freeform locks? If you're skinny, why do you see a fat person and get a reaction? Sometimes it's not always things that stigmatize us, but things that stigmatize others. So we really try to get into the process of understanding why is it that I don't like this thing, I don't like what's it called. It might be something usually internalized within you, because internalized racism and internalized misogyny and internalized homophobia and internalized etc. is a huge part of decolonizing that on a sociological level is a huge part of shadow work, because society will tell us different things about different people, and even though sometimes in certain facets it might propel you, it doesn't take away from the fact that it's a shadow. It's an aspect of you that needs to be addressed, and other people play a huge part in shadow work, especially other people that we don't even know that we may be harming, or um we may be being cruel to. I think a drag queen once says this, and Courtney Axe said it on an episode of with Trixie and Katya. She's like, the less critical you are of others, most likely the less critical you are of yourself. So have a kinder eye to people, and when you're in the moment of like critiquing others, really catch yourself doing it and think, is this valid? And if you truly feel like it is valid, no one is above critique, and people do problematic things. But if it's not valid, like it may have nothing to do with them and most likely a lot to do with you. I mentioned that a lot in my video, Are You a Child of the Shadows? So if you felt like you are on the receiving end of that people constantly project onto you, I'd recommend that you watch. I think the greatest thing of shadow work, obviously this is like a part of the practical approach, being completely honest with yourself. So as you're journaling, I need you to write what you're writing, what you're saying. You need to completely make a thing of being completely honest with yourself. No one has to see it. Another practical approach I would say is still journaling, but I'd added here is doing the daily practice by Anna Franco. She's one of my favorite YouTubers and favorite people on the internet, because she definitely changed my life and taught me how to regulate myself and regulate my own emotions. And I will say that her daily practice, something that to me was just very, very healing to do. Very, what's the word? Very, like, it made my life much easier to live with. I can't always think of words fast, but writing down your fears and resentments and then doing that is very helpful. I'll link a video in the description on how to do it and how she says you should do it. I say that I'd say another step is definitely writing letters to people that have hurt you, writing letters to people who have kind of like made you feel unworthy, and say whatever it is you want to say. You don't have to send it to them. I would even advise that you burn it after. Just release it in some way. You can keep it till you're ready to keep it and then you burn it. And it's really just so that you can have a better um understanding of how things have affected you and how that relationship impacted you generally. So I think overall, when you do that and when you take a part in writing letters to those people, for me, I've been trying to get over my ex for the past, I think we broke up in November. And it was very difficult for me because I'd never been in a situation where I was in a relationship that was that intimate before. And every day I had something to write on. Every day something had bothered me within the relationship. Like sometimes there's the maybe stages. What if I hadn't done this? What if he hadn't done this? Or the stages where you just miss them so much, and the stages where you're just so angry, and the stages where you're just so sad, and the stages where you just miss them. I wrote those letters to him, which I regret. I think I wish I'd kept them and burned them. But whatever ones that you, whatever process you feel is better for you, it will help you kind of release whatever it is or whatever that relationship has done to you, what it's done for you, how it's held you back, how it's propelled you forward. It's like it's no longer a thing of like, oh, it's black and white. I think when the people that have hurt us are complete monsters, it's much easier for us to demonize them and then go about our lives. But sometimes it's just a difficult and complex process or a difficult and complex relationship between the both of you. And if you write it down, you will understand the nuance of that relationship and release it and let it go. And know that it served a purpose and you are above it and you can move forward. Another practical approach I would say is inner child healing. There's a meditation I did years ago, and basically I did the meditation. If meditation is not for you, that's okay. I did the meditation, and during the meditation, I basically had a conversation with my inner child. Um, I obviously went into my subconscious, spoke to my inner child, and I told her all the things that I had felt, and all the things that I wish I could have said to her. I wish people could have said to her. One of a huge symbol for me, and so I'm saying symbols can be characters as well. I love Matilda growing up because I related to her, and this is Matilda the movie. And Miss Honey was a huge part of my. I always wanted someone to come and save me, and when you're in that process, like Miss Honey, and I always say that when you're in that process, become your Miss Honey. Like, go do that meditation and you say all the things that you want to say to yourself because your inner child, that child that was scared, that child that was confused, that child that was abandoned, is always within you. It's always there. She's there to comfort you, or he's there, or they're there to comfort you. And they just want to be loved because you only have yourself. And oftentimes we have to get into the process of babying ourselves and being present with our own being present with our own body, our own mind, and our heart. So I would definitely advise inner child healing. I recommend it. It works.